So again, so just for the sake of this presentation, Olaf has termed the future of PDF, if you will, PDF 3.0. That's not an actual target or anything, so we're really talking about forward-looking. But before we look to the future, I thought it would be useful to look to the present, because it's the present that I think clearly sets those directions. And we have to look at the fact that PDF is coming up on its 20th anniversary, and so over those 20 years, there are literally billions and billions of files, and those are ones we know of. We know of people who actually have individual collections of almost 1 billion files, let alone what's out there in the world and what we don't know about. It's been, and I mentioned this the other day, it's been standardized as a national standard by over 50 countries around the world, and as I pointed out, India just last week added to that list. So we're continuing to see this as an already adopted national standard. It's referenced by other standards, including HTML5 itself actually references PDF, as do various large-scale projects here in the EU, SPOX and PEPL, and numerous other standards. All themselves rely on PDF in one way or another. There's a huge ecosystem. Over those 20 years, there are thousands of tools out there in open source, in commercial, viewers, creators, producers, all sorts of things. The ecosystem is huge, and the industries themselves have been built up. The legal industry, engineering, all of these industries have moved to themselves build around PDF as their format of choice for what they do. And that's extremely significant as we think about the future. So how are these people using it? What are the top usage? So this information is actually based on, we have an opt-in feature in Adobe's products that you can opt in, and we can collect, if you choose to say yes, we can collect information about the types of things you're viewing and what you do with our products. So based on this information, I've sort of put together what we see based, at least for our products, the top usages for PDFs. And there's absolutely no question that static electronic paper, is the win. That's how most people are using PDF today, and certainly legal documents, scans, office documents, and the like. Comment and review, big usage. Forms. Forms, in many ways, really pushed PDF into the forefront. When the IRS adopted PDF forms, PDF usage, and the whole notion that people knew what PDF was, just became huge. So it was a big use case and continues to be one of the biggest use cases for PDF today. Digital electronic signatures, just again in our products alone, I'm trying to remember the number, but it's in the tens of thousands of PDFs are signed per month in our products, okay? And again, there's lots of other products out there. And then the other one, 3D. I would say it's a distant fifth, but it is significant because in those industries, and you talk about companies like Boeing and Airbus, and every one of their documents and every one of their parts is being produced in this way, then you're talking large collections, lots of data, and a very important use. But of course, PDF isn't perfect, so what's wrong with it? What's it missing? Well, I would say it's probably not missing much. And in fact, we could actually say it probably has too much in it already, and lots of people already do. The biggest thing, as we've seen over the last year or two, is that PDF was designed, we said 20 years ago, in a pre-hacker world, would be the way I like to describe it. There have been lots and lots of attacks against the format, attacks against viewers, because we added features to the language that at the time were safe and that people actually wanted, and now people are taking advantage of. And clearly we need to reevaluate those things and determine what do these things mean in today's world with the hackers and the people who are out to get you. The last, and I think in some ways the most important aspect that's also been brought to life with the advent, especially of mobile devices, to me is that not all viewers are created equal. We at Adobe used to love the fact and live by the fact that Adobe Reader was ubiquitous. We could kind of assume, and users for that matter, assume that if you were reading PDF, you were reading it in Reader. And obviously that's changed over the years as more and more of you have developed your own readers, and that's great, don't get me wrong. But with the development of smartphones and tablets, that's become even more significant. And what's significant about it is that those other viewers, especially the ones on mobile platforms, simply don't offer all of the functionality. They don't support all of the features of PDF that it's theirs. So what's the purpose? How good is it for a user to be able to stick a video in their document if it doesn't play? Or to put together a really complex form with calculations, like a tax form, that doesn't actually calculate when the user fills it in? It's not really a very useful thing. And I think we have to keep that in mind, because not all of these, the reason viewers don't adopt it, they don't adopt these things for various reasons. And so what can we do to help them adopt capabilities that are relevant and useful? And keep that in mind as we look towards the future. So we've already started down this path a bit, and Matthew talked about this yesterday with PDF 2.0. We've started down the deprecation path. We've looked at various things that aren't used anymore, that are problematic, and we started deprecating them. And we haven't added that many features in PDF 2.0, and the ones we've added have really been targeted to very specific users and groups of users who historically have always wanted features in PDF but never had an opportunity. The color management folks, the graphic arts world who had very specific needs, the digital signature world who wanted us to move closer to them rather than being out on the ends, and the like. So, again, very sort of baby steps in that regard. Most of the work we've done in 2.0, cleaning it up. So with this in mind, how do we move this forward? And to me, the movement forward is evolution, or is revolution, not evolution. We want to move forward. We want to improve PDF as we know it today and improve it for the groups that need it, and sort of, divest all of the baggage that we've collected over these years, and really put PDF where PDF shines and where users are using PDF today, not where Adobe may have thought 15 years ago that it was a good idea. So what sorts of things could we look at that would help the industries? So if we look at the engineering industry, and these are just some examples, there are lots and lots of others, but some interesting things that the engineering industry has talked about. They need, the way they do lines and vectors in engineering is very different than the way PDF does. There's a concept of non-scaling lines that they'd like to see in PDF. They also have non-rectangular hot areas. They'd actually like a stairwell, the actual lines of a stairwell in an engineering diagram to be hot, not the rectangle that surrounds it. I'm not taking questions, but thank you. Okay, so things like that, and various other things that the engineering industry would like to see that we've not brought into PDF as yet. The graphic arts world, we heard a great presentation yesterday by Andy about spectral color. How could we continue to adopt spectral color in PDF? What does that really mean? Improvements in the drawing model. Adobe and others have been pushing the drawing model, strokes, and these are some interesting examples of things that you can do with Adobe Illustrator that don't represent well in PDF, or I should say don't represent live. They have to be flattened down into very simpler operations. What if we could keep these types of things live in the documents? How can we improve the graphics model, which really hasn't been touched in a long time? What improvements could be made there? And then, of course, things that would make, and things that you've heard some about today, how could we improve tagging and structure? What types of things is Matthew and his group are already starting to think about? What's the improvement in structured and tagged PDF? Linkages, how can we improve links into PDF, between PDFs, that beyond what's already there today? So these are just a couple of interesting ideas in terms of electronic paper. I personally think one of the biggest areas that we could make advancements in is forms, because forms have not advanced in PDF for a variety of reasons we don't have to talk about for a number of years now. But I think the other thing, though, that even though it has advanced, has not helped us, is the entire reliance on JavaScript as the driver for forms. For better or worse, people turn off JavaScript, regardless of, or they don't even implement it. You can't implement it on certain platforms. So how can we implement, how could we provide business rules, business logic in a declarative fashion? So a PDF form could handle calculations and relationships and everything without scripting. You know, declarative business logic, I think, is huge. I think that's, if we want to see the forms business grow, I think it's key. New form types, image fields has been one of the biggest requests from developers in PDF for as long as I can remember. Other types of new fields. Bindings to XML, to databases and other models, again, without scripting needs. How do we accomplish such things? Template improvements. So I think this is a big area that we could really continue to push, something that people rely on PDF for today. Signatures, I mentioned, continues to be a big growth area. Those of you who are in the PODES session, Barrett mentioned the fact parallel signatures are not part of the PDF signature model today. That's something that would be very useful. Selective signatures we also talked about in that session, signing just parts of a document that comes up. Also, we've seen, as was talked about in that session, that in addition to digital signatures, electronic signatures are becoming more and more important in various parts of the world. How do we make that a native part of PDF and make it equal to digital signatures? Let's make it a native part. And continue to maintain that alignment with groups such as Etsy, who are standardizing digital signatures themselves in their realm. How do we continue to grow this in those regards? And finally, I mentioned 3D. Similarly, today, 3D is driven a lot by JavaScript for animations, part relationships, and the like. How do we turn those into declarative as well? If you remember from my PRC talk yesterday, I said PRC is very focused on the visual. But how do we go beyond the visual? How do we incorporate things like PMI, product manufacturing information, and other types of rich metadata that the 3D industry is using so that they can leverage one format and not necessarily multiple formats? So hopefully, I just want to leave you with those thoughts as to how PDF itself could evolve and really, I think, address the needs of the communities that are already using it. I don't see us trying to reach out necessarily to new users. I think, you know, we've got all the users we may necessarily need, but certain parts of our user segment are not well met and haven't been. And I think that that should be one of the focuses as we look to the future of PDF, is meeting their needs. So thank you very much.
Any questions, comments?
Yes.
What do you mean by a non-scaling line? We already have zero set line width.
So in the engineering space, when they say this line is 2 pixels high, it should always display at 2 pixels regardless of how big you scale. So what PDF does is the scaling factor is added to the line weight. In engineering, that's a no-no. You're not allowed to do that in
So
certain
extension
cases.
of the concept that's in zero set line width.
Well, zero set line width is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
It works very differently. It's non-scaling, and zero set line width is in PostScript. It's not in PDF. You can't do zero. You can't do it. It doesn't work.
Maybe one quick sentence in explanation. It comes from the world of plotting.
No, I understand that. I was just wondering because I was under the impression zero
And
set line width was inherited into PDF.
It's not just non-scaling lines, it would also be non-scaling patterns as well.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
Certain
Got it.
areas are drawn.
They convey meaning with that.
And if you
Different
print it
language.
scale down, you print it large, it will always be 3 mm wide and a thin black line of
Exactly.
width, and that repeats.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
lines and patterns.
Yeah, lines and pattern, and everything that's derived from that. Correct. Yeah. Cool.
I think it was in Berlin where you were presenting the future of PDFA, and it was at that time we were not sure where the 3D archiving will go, if it will go into PDFE, if it will stay in PDFA, or is there any news on that?
Yes, I actually think you talked about that yesterday.
I mentioned
in
it.
PDFE. So PDFE2 will be 3D archiving. That's where that's going to be addressed. And it's active now. We're currently in CD2, I believe.
Yeah, it's probably going to be released around the same time as PDF 2.0 comes out because there's some interconnection.
They're related to each other, that's correct. Yeah.
And it's not called something with A or archiving in its name, but one of the biggest value propositions is it defines archival of these files. It's really inside the text of the standard. And could never convince the PDFA people to think about archival of 3D information. And for a number of reasons, it's still like that.
Yep.
Some of the reasons are even good.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the engineering people are back to their own backyard and had to figure out how to define an archival format for engineering documents, including 3D models in U3D and PRC encoding.
Mhm.
And the PDFA people are at least friendly enough to help with that.
Yes.
So we're all sticking around. But it's going to be PDF E2, and if you are going to present it to stakeholders and customers, you probably want to say PDF E2, the more modern PDF E format, but also covering archival of these documents.
One additional question regarding video. As far
Sorry?
as regarding video.
Oh, video, yes.
As far as I know, there's nothing defined so far which is video archiving.
Yeah, so video, we could spend hours just on the whole topic of video archiving. The short answer is that the world at large, the industry at large, does not have a solution to video archiving. In fact, I'm aware of at least 5 different standards groups that are all trying to solve that problem. So we're ignoring it until video experts solve it, and when they solve it, then we can adopt it in PDF.
Yeah, and it's not just technical problems, it's very often also intellectual property
Right,
problems.
we've decided that's their expertise, we're gonna let them worry about it.
It's much worse than anything we ever had in PDF.
Yes, exactly. Okay.